He killed a boy and sent taunting letters, then claimed he did it for a disturbingly personal reason. The case of Luc Tarron and the Strangler. The year is 1964. The setting, the seemingly tranquil suburbs of Paris. A darkness was about to descend, shattering the illusion of safety and forever scarring the collective memory of a nation. Luc Tarron, a boy of just 11 years, vanished. He disappeared after a trivial argument with his mother, a dispute over a mere 15 francs. Little did anyone know this petty disagreement would be the last interaction Luc would ever have with his family. Days turned into an agonizing eternity. Hope dwindled with each passing hour. Then the unthinkable. Luc's body was discovered in the Verrières-le-Buisson woods. The scene was brutal, the young boy mutilated. The community was plunged into a state of shock and disbelief. How could such a heinous act occur in their peaceful haven? Fear gripped the hearts of parents, their children now vulnerable in a world that suddenly seemed menacing. Give a like and subscribe. Leave a comment. As if the murder itself wasn't horrific enough, a new layer of torment began to unfold. The killer, emboldened by his act, began sending letters. These weren't remorseful confessions, but rather chilling taunts. The letters were addressed to the police, the media, and most cruelly to Luc's grieving family. Each word was a calculated dagger, twisting the knife in their already gaping wounds. The signature scrawled at the bottom sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned investigators. Strangler, the Strangler. The letters detailed the crime with disturbing accuracy. They reveled in the killer's actions, painting a portrait of a man consumed by a perverse sense of power. The Strangler seemed to relish the fear he was instilling. A climate of terror descended upon the region. Every shadow seemed to conceal a lurking threat. Every stranger became a suspect. The Strangler wasn't just a murderer. He was a puppeteer, pulling the strings of public anxiety. Adding to the horror, the killer began making phone calls. His voice, a chilling whisper on the other end of the line, boasted about the killings. The media, desperate to keep the public informed, began identifying him as the Strangler, solidifying his monstrous persona in the collective consciousness. Amidst the chaos and fear, the wheels of justice slowly began to turn. Detectives worked tirelessly, sifting through evidence, chasing leads, and desperately trying to unmask the monster behind the letters. Their efforts eventually led them to a name, Lucien Leger. Lucien Leger, a 27-year-old student nurse, seemed an unlikely suspect. He was unremarkable, blending into the background of everyday life. Yet, a search of his apartment revealed a disturbing collection of clues. Police found newspaper clippings about the case, meticulously collected and stored. More damning was the discovery of a rose-tinted notepad. It matched the paper used for the taunting letters, a crucial piece of evidence that pointed directly at Leger. After 24 hours of intense interrogation, Leger broke. He confessed to the murder of Luc Tarron. The confession was chilling in its detail, revealing the cold and calculating nature of the killer. As he was escorted to jail, Leger made a chilling proclamation. He declared himself a monster, a label that would forever be associated with his name. The public, initially relieved by the arrest, now grappled with the unsettling reality of the evil that had been lurking in their midst. The case against Leger seemed airtight. He had confessed, the evidence was compelling, and the public demanded justice. However, the path to conviction would not be so straightforward. Leger, in a stunning reversal, retracted his confession. He claimed he had been coerced by the police, that he was innocent of the crime. He admitted to writing some of the letters, but denied any involvement in Luc's murder. The trial became a spectacle, a battle of wills between the prosecution and the defense. The evidence was presented, witnesses were called, and Leger maintained his innocence. The jury, faced with conflicting accounts and circumstantial evidence, had a difficult decision to make. Despite his retraction, Leger was ultimately convicted of Luc's murder in 1966. The jury, swayed by the evidence and the initial confession, found him guilty. Justice, it seemed, had finally been served. Léger was sentenced to life in prison, a punishment that seemed fitting for the heinousness of his crime. But even behind bars, he refused to accept responsibility. He continued to protest his innocence, clinging to the hope of eventual exoneration. Throughout his nearly 40 years of imprisonment, Léger maintained he had memory loss regarding the night of the murder. This convenient amnesia became a recurring theme in his appeals, a desperate attempt to cast doubt on his guilt. Léger repeatedly appealed for a retrial, arguing that the evidence against him was circumstantial and that his confession had been coerced. Each appeal was meticulously reviewed, but ultimately denied. The courts remained unconvinced of his innocence. Even after his death, the legal battle continued. The European Court of Human Rights posthumously reviewed Léger's argument for release. They considered whether his rights had been violated during the initial investigation and trial. The case, it seemed, would never truly be closed. The question that haunted investigators and the public alike was why? What drove Lucien Léger to commit such a brutal act? What was the motive behind the murder of Luc Tarron? Léger himself offered a chilling explanation. He claimed he chose Luc because the boy seemed as unhappy as I was when I was his age. This disturbing statement revealed a twisted sense of empathy, a desire to inflict pain on someone who mirrored his own inner turmoil. Those who knew Léger described him as a disappointingly normal man. He was unremarkable in almost every way, blending into the crowd without drawing attention. This ordinariness made his crime all the more unsettling. He had a hobby of banal writing, a seemingly harmless pursuit that masked a darker side. This creative outlet may have provided an escape for his repressed emotions, a way to express the darkness that lurked within. The motive as it emerged was a complex mix of personal dissatisfaction and a desire for notoriety. Léger, it seemed, was driven by a need to feel powerful, to leave his mark on the world, even if it meant committing an unspeakable act. After serving nearly 4 decades behind bars, Lucien Léger was released from prison in October 2005. His release sparked outrage and fear. Many believed he should have remained incarcerated for the rest of his life. He lived a quiet, secluded life, attempting to reintegrate into a society that largely reviled him. The shadow of his past continued to haunt him, making it impossible for him to escape the stigma of the Strangler. 3 years later, in 2008, Léger was found dead in his home. His death marked the end of a long and troubled life, a life defined by violence, imprisonment, and infamy. The case of Luc Tarron and Lucien Léger remains a chilling chapter in French criminal history. It serves as a stark reminder of the psychological impact of crime, not only on the victims and their families, but on the entire community. The Taunting letters, in particular, highlight the chilling nature of psychological manipulation. They demonstrate how a killer can extend his reign of terror beyond the act of violence itself, inflicting lasting emotional scars on those left behind. The case underscores the enduring pain inflicted on victims and their families. The loss of Luc Tarron reverberated through generations, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the ever-present threat of evil. The case haunted Paris for several weeks, not just because of the murder itself, but because of Léger's calculated campaign of terror through his letters. He reveled in the fear he created, turning the city into a stage for his twisted performance. Despite the extensive investigation, investigators were unable to definitively link Léger to any additional murders. This lack of closure leaves open the possibility that he may have been responsible for other unsolved crimes, a chilling thought that continues to linger in the shadows of the past.